by the judge to send the 7 KMPD officials to prison has drawn mixed reactions from the public gallery. There are those who feel it's too harsh for the workers simply fighting for their rights, while those of differing opinion feel that workers too have to obey the law in pursuit of their rights. So who suffers and who is held responsible when critical public sector workers such as doctors are on strike for over 2 months? What is the solution to the long doctor strike in Kenya, of course, given what is happening at the moment? My panelists in studio tonight, on my left, we have Peter Wanyama, advocate of the High Court of Kenya, representing the Council of Governors and the Ministry as well. And Makueni, senator and lawyer. We have Mutula Kilonzo Jr. in studio. Thank you both so much for joining us. Maybe let me start with you, Senator. Now, the sole reason that the doctors get committed to prison is on contempt of court for fighting for their rights.
Yes.
You know, before we even get into that, it almost feels like there is absolutely nothing that can be done. Like, we're stuck. They've gone to jail now. They're going to be there for a month. Is there a sense that all negotiations have completely failed? I mean, what happens now?
As far as I'm concerned, the negotiations have collapsed and they have failed. And the reason is because the officials have stated that they will not negotiate. And their members will not agree to any negotiations that will be done while their officials are in prison. And remember, the reason we applied for a review was that this prison sentence that was hanging on them like a sword of Damocles was, in our view, the reason why the Ministry and Council of Governors were not in a hurry to sit and talk to them. So all the time, every time they start to negotiate, by the time you get to the end, somebody walks out. Over the weekend, when the senior officials are supposed to be there when you're finalizing the negotiations, nobody shows up. And then I'm surprised that CS Mailu issues a press conference and says, I'm now willing to look for them. Why is he going to look for them? Is he going to go to Langata Women's Prison and negotiate with them? Is he going to go to GK Remand Prison and look for them in prison uniform? That is the sort of thing that you cannot allow. We were saying that you must negotiate on an equal platform.
And that hasn't happened.
And that hasn't happened.
Can I get your response before we cross over to Railways Club?
Yeah, I think in terms of the negotiations, I really, from the other perspective, you have to blame the doctors. They have not negotiated in good faith. There have been numerous meetings to negotiate this problematic CBA. The issue here is that doctors are insisting on a problematic CBA, which the court itself said must be looked at and ask all the parties to go to the negotiating table and address those concerns. So, in my view, the strike can actually be ended if doctors come to the table to address those fundamental concerns which were raised by the court in terms of...
In fact, let me say this. You must go back to the history. And the person who have been negotiating, particularly now that the Council of Governors is the one that has caused the doctors to be jailed, when the industrial court judge found that the CBA needs to be negotiated and provided timelines, one of the other things that the court said was that no party should frustrate the doctors and the officials. So the Ministry of Health immediately, through an affidavit sworn by Muragori, now the PS, who doesn't even appear for the negotiations, then went and stayed the CBA and the ruling ex parte. The Council of Governors then goes to court and obtains this order. And I want to read it because this is the reason why I've been arguing that you cannot jail the doctors on a contempt on this order. The order that has jailed the doctors reads as follows, and I want to read the third portion. It says, this Honorable Court hereby directs that the dispute be subjected to inclusive process of negotiations to resolve any outstanding issues arising from the collective bargaining agreement dated 27th June 2016 in such a manner and within such timelines as the court will direct. There was another order issued on Kenya Medical. Let me tell you.
Yeah, we have our report on standby. Very quickly, we need to cross over to Railways because that's where the doctors are holding vigil. Please hold that thought because we'll come back. Just hold that thought. We'll come back.
It's going to be painful.
No, that's fine. Wilkista Nyabwa standing by live at the Railways Club. There she is. Wilkista, if you could take us through what's happening at the moment. Earlier on, we weren't able to hear Wilkista very well. Let's see if we can get her loud and clear right now. Wilkista, take us through what's happening on location right now.
We are at the Railways Club where the doctors were converging after 7 of their colleagues were sent to jail earlier today. And earlier, I think you were able to see the pictures of just the situation here. You might not be able to get a clear picture, but behind me there's a line of GSU officers. The doctors had converged to just speak about the way forward after their colleagues were sent to jail, and GSU officers arrived to discuss them, and it was a bit chaotic afterwards. You can hear a little bit doctors tooting their horns because they have been told that they have to leave, and this is their way of registering protests. Some of them were earlier chanting CBA, just trying to get their point of view across even as they left, but we did see some trying to just stay put. They have been discussing. We are seeing vehicles slowly leaving the compound. There were more earlier, and we're just seeing them leaving slowly. Some of the doctors are still around in small groups discussing what transpired during the day. We do know that they met here and that county officials from the Nairobi County branch of the Doctors Union addressed them. They spoke about how they would like to deal with the events of the day, and we do know that they have said that they will not carry out any more negotiations until their colleagues are freed. However, they might not be able to continue the talks today, given that there are GSU officers at the entrance of the club as well as inside and around, just patrolling and trying to ensure that everybody goes home. Doctors had also said earlier that they would be holding a night vigil outside the facilities where their colleagues are being held, but we do see that they have not been able to do so. At this point, they're leaving. We do not know what the next plan is, but we do know that our consultants are also set to join in, holding a 24-hour strike from midnight. Our lights have gone off. It might be a little difficult to make out, but this is simply doctors now leaving, doctors from all over the country leaving, perhaps to go and figure out what their next step is now that they have been discussed from the place where they were meeting. Back to you in studio.
Mr. Nyabo coming to us live there from the Railway Club. We can see the doctors, as she said, leaving the ground. The presence there of the GSU officers, obviously, probably they were the ones who made the request for them to leave. And as she said, the doctors then trying to figure out what next. Would you like to comment on that before you pick up on your point and allow Mr. Wanyama to say as well? Yeah.
It's unfortunate because we are seeing the use of force. In fact, the minute when I appeared in this matter, and for the time that I've appeared in court, there's been more policemen than even the litigants themselves. A show of force, a show of intimidation. It's the same thing when this sentence was hanging on the doctors. It's a show that if you don't talk, we're going to jail you. Now that the doctors, some are in Langata Women's Prison and some are in GK Remand Prison, and you can see the others are in railway, you ask yourself the question, is the court going to jail everybody? Is the court going to jail all doctors? What if they refuse to go to work? That's what I'm saying. The context under which the court has operated, and in view of the orders that I'm reading before you, is that the court contemplated, and the court is supposed to be used, particularly this court, which is called the industrial court, is supposed to be an arbiter. It was supposed to arbitrate this dispute. And therefore, in an arbitration and where you're negotiating, one person is not supposed to feel under pressure. In this case, where the order was that it was supposed to be an all-inclusive process, the court should have offered such guidelines and directions so that there is default on a person. For example, Mr. Wanyama here represents the Council of Governors. What is it that they were supposed to do that they haven't done? And therefore, that report should have been in court. What is it that the Ministry of Health should have done and they have not done?
And none of these guidelines were...
and none of these guidelines were issued, but now the doctors have gone to jail. While the Council of Governors, represented by my good friend, Mr. Wanyama here, are having a good time. The minister has the liberty of issuing a press conference, and the other one who is mentioned here, the Cabinet Secretary of Labour and Social Services, is not even bothered, maybe is not even in the country. That is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. You have to admit, based on that, there's loopholes and obviously a lot of the backlash that people... So what exactly has gone wrong, Mr. Wanyama? What is it that has led to... And also the fact that the negotiations, many felt, haven't been fair.
Yes.
No. That's not entirely correct. What I recall is that there have been over 10 meetings between the national government and together with counties plus the doctors. In these particular meetings, the union contrary to the court order, has insisted on the implementation of a CBA, which from a legal and constitutional standpoint, it can't be implemented unless you address the underlying issues which the court said. And this is the issue. The CBA was signed when counties were in place, and counties are employ a bulk of the doctors, 80% of the doctors. So what you do is that you amend the CBA, you put that in the document, and then you proceed to address the other issues. And in my view, there are 31 non-contentious issues in the CBA, which doctors are going on strike over, issues which can be handled from a policy, administrative intervention. These are not issues that you're supposed to go on strike over. The only issue, in my view, which warrants negotiation is that aspect of salary. However, issues about staff housing, mortgages, car loans, these are issues which the counties and national government, from the offer which was given and from the direction from the SRC, these are issues which, in my view, can adequately be addressed conveniently.
Would you say there's an issue also in the way it's been addressed? Let's step away from what's contained right now. Meetings maybe not being attended in full. The element of intimidation or that's probably some of the things that have led to where we are tonight. Let me explain a fundamental issue here. Is that doctors were required to negotiate with the government. However, for them, they insisted on the implementation of a CBA, and therefore they didn't address the underlying issues which they were supposed to negotiate. When the Council of Governors went to court to say that this strike is illegal, and the court told them, you people, you need to sit down and negotiate, call off the strike and negotiate, because the concerns by a Council of Governors are legitimate concerns. They are not wishy-washy concerns. So what happened is that then the doctors, in their own opinion, didn't follow that court order.
Let me say something.
They are being jailed because they didn't follow a court order, not because that they are fighting for these concerns.
Let me explain something that is absolutely contradictory, and Mr. Onyama possibly doesn't even know what the politics is that this CBA has got nothing, at this stage where it's supposed to be self-executing, had nothing to do with the Council of Governors. Now, number two, it's not a contradiction for this document called the CBA as it is to be registered pending the resolution of those issues, and the court recognized those issues. Now, instead of the Council of Governors finding an avenue to plug into the already existing CBA, they then go to court when they are not parties to this CBA, and then cause a contempt court order to be issued ex parte. So, first and foremost, the doctors have been jailed because of the Council of Governors. The persons who are supposed to negotiate with them are saying, first of all, deal with the Council of Governors. They are not primarily the employers of the doctors. Now, since they are saying
that is not correct, that's not
particularly
correct.
on the CBA, and I'm saying that if you want to negotiate in good faith, and the government and the Council of Governors have not negotiated in good faith, there was nothing wrong with registering, and that is what we proposed. Register the CBA as it is, propose a return to work formula with the non-contentious clauses, which included the input of the SRC. Look, I mean, you have now jailed doctors simply because they are asking for a simple pay rise. They are in jail with criminals. It's unbelievable. What sort of a...
That is not entirely correct. Doctors are in jail because they have disobeyed a lawful court order. Of course, for us from the counties, we understand their concerns. However, is it possible for us to create a framework where these doctors can be able to negotiate with us? And that's all we're asking. We are saying, look at the CBA. We are in a constitutional dispensation where counties are a major... And of course, you have to correct your statement. Counties are a major employers of doctors. 80% of the doctors are actually employed in the counties. So on what basis can you conceivably register and implement a CBA without involving counties?
Absolutely not parties to the CBA.
Absolutely. And the point is that the mere fact that they're not parties to the CBA is enough reason why you need to sit down and amend the CBA
now,
to recognize
I was expecting you to tell me from 1st of December, today is 13th of February 2017, where is the framework proposed by the so-called employers, Council of Governors?
Can I give you an example of what you are doing now?
Where is it? Because I have not seen
an example.
Where is the framework?
The doctors and the nurses issued a strike nearly at the same time. For the nurses, what they did is to recognize, first of all, that counties are major employers and that we need to negotiate a CBA with county governments. So what happened is that as we speak, there's a framework to discuss the issues with nurses. The CBA is expected to be executed after 2nd of March 2017 with nurses. Clearing all the issues. For doctors, they have completely refused to come to negotiate with us. We are telling them, why can't you come and negotiate these issues? We are an employer.
So
we have money in our
7
budget.
officials
in jail
right now. Can I ask you what is supposed to happen between now till the end of the month and after that?
You see, Janet, the problem here is that this is a court order. In my view, the doctors have executed their strategy in court in a very, very poor manner. All they need to do is to come back to court, apologize, and say that we are ready and willing to engage the 2 levels of government in a framework to negotiate the problematic issues so that the issues can be sorted out.
That framework, according to these 2 orders, was supposed to come from the court. That is what I told the judge.
But courts don't negotiate, eh?
No, they don't negotiate
at all.
You provide the framework. The framework has a timeline. It is not there. So therefore, when you jail doctors, and the Council of Governors to whom this order is in favor have been sitting pretty. And you know the reason, the politics behind it, is because nobody, both at national level and county level, wants to share the burden of the salaries. So there's a push and pull between the 2 levels of government. So therefore, between the Council of Governors and the executive at national level of the President and his cabinet secretary, we are going to hold them to account, and the history is going to judge all of them so harshly for jailing the best professionals. The best brains in this country are now in jail with criminals.
Jailed by the President? Or jailed by the Council of Governors?
They've been jailed by the Council of Governors.
The point is this: there is actually a framework. There's actually a framework for engagement of all the concerns by doctors. Let me just give you an example.
Are you willing to
doctors are complaining about vertical and horizontal movement. They want to move from county A to county B. This is a framework which is already contained in the policy documents which are in existing. And if you examine the implementation of that particular issue, then you can see that it's not an issue anymore. Look at the bill which is currently before the Senate. They're the ones who have delayed this bill. The health bill contains a fundamental framework to isolate most of the issues which the doctors are complaining about. If you implement the policy and the legislative interventions which are in place, you will have addressed 31 but 1 of all the concerns by doctors. The only remaining concern, which in my view the government has made an offer, is the one on salaries. And here I believe that the offer by government to pay salaries in accordance with the amount they have stated is based on policy considerations, and therefore you can't really question that. What the doctors need to do is to come and negotiate with government and say, the offer that you've given us on salaries is something which we need to be enhanced on this quantum, and a settlement will be agreed upon.
I want to give you a chance to respond, and then we'll wind up and just try to understand, or even give some insight into Kenyans to understand what's expected now that the other doctors or individuals even, sort of planning to down their tools as well, really further deepening us into another crisis.
That's what I said.
So please
you see, the court, the theory behind an industrial court is not the same way as you have the other courts of law. They're supposed to be an arbiter. They're supposed to arbitrate disputes between workers. Where you have an essential service like this, the court should have played a bigger role in this to ensure that, in fact, then you have a resolution. So therefore, when you jail the 7 of them, and yet the order says you must negotiate, what happens after the 30 days? Because you can't jail them again after the 30 days. What is the Council of Governors, through my good friend who is on a retainer, and like me who is doing a pro bono service for this country, what are you supposed to do after 30 days?
I think we have a framework.
So what next, Senator?
What I'm simply saying is that people will have to walk out of their shells. The Council of Governors will have to realize that since they wanted to hang this sword of Damocles on the doctors and they have agreed to go to jail and they have been jailed, the rest are keeping vigil, it's not going to work. So the best thing to do is, first of all, go to court, withdraw this order, and ask that they negotiate on a platform where there is no sword hanging on the Council of Governors, there is no sword hanging on the minister, CS, or any other party, and there's no other one hanging on the doctors. Yes, it's that simple.
Can I show you the framework?
You show me the framework, but before you proceed, it's no longer hidden that the top government officials, CS and PS, are not working together.
No, they are not.
To resolve the strike. Should the government...
No, that's a political statement.
It's not a political statement.
I think that what we're trying to say is, and the same thing I've asked him, is what next? We can see that...
What next, in my view, and if the doctors are willing to come to the table...
After sentence or before?
No. what I'm saying is that there's a framework to address all the underlying concerns. If they are willing to come to the negotiating table and agree that framework is not the CBA.
Do we need a fresh pair of hands for these negotiations?
We need a fresh pair of eyes.
Unfortunately, the government of Kenya is at 2 levels, and you have to negotiate. No matter what doctors do, they can go on industrial action forever, but at the end of the day, they must come and negotiate with the government which is there.
So you see, it's an endless. It's like
they must come and negotiate. The government is willing to negotiate. So you can't just be on industrial action forever.
The jailing of 7 officials today by Justice Wasilwa is an exercise in futility for purposes of what is on the table.
I'm surprised that Mutula Kilonzo, being a lawyer, is actually saying that
a good lawyer,
a person can contravene a court order. Then
no, but I've told him that this order could not be contravened in the manner proposed because it was supposed to have a framework where your clients should have also been responsible. The chairman of the Council of Governors should also be in handcuffs.
No, the chairman is ready and willing to come and talk to the doctor.
He should say he's willing to go to committee.
We'll continue to understand the legal